If your life feels like it's falling apart right now, if relationships are collapsing, your motivation is gone, and nothing feels meaningful anymore, this may not be failure. According to the psychologist Carl Jung, this is exactly what happens right before consciousness awakens. But almost no one survives this phase without pain. There is a moment in life when everything you once relied on begins to collapse. It doesn't happen all at once, not dramatically. It happens slowly, quietly, almost politely. Your motivation just fades away. People you once felt close to become distant. The old dreams you chased now feel hollow. And the world that once made perfect sense suddenly feels completely unfamiliar. Most people look at this moment and see failure. But Carl Jung saw something entirely different. He believed this phase isn't a breakdown. It's a necessary psychological death. And without it, true awakening can never happen. Modern culture teaches us a lie about growth. We're told that healing is a straight line upwards, that awakening feels powerful and enlightening, and that becoming more conscious should make life easier. Jung warned us against this beautiful illusion. He said that true psychological transformation doesn't begin with improvement. It begins with disintegration. Before something new and authentic can emerge, the old structure has to collapse. And believe me, the ego does not surrender quietly. For years, you live inside an identity you didn't consciously choose. You adapt, you perform, you comply. You become what society rewards you for being. But beneath this public mask, this persona, another force is growing silently. The true self. Jung described the tension between these two forces as the conflict between the ego and the deeper psyche. Eventually, the ego can no longer maintain control. And that's when life starts to feel wrong. It's not because something external is broken, but because your inner structure is no longer aligned with who you truly are. When consciousness finally begins to awaken, three things typically happen. First, false meaning dissolves. The things that once motivated you, status, money, approval, they just lose their power. Second, relationships that were built on masks start to weaken. You find you can no longer pretend to be someone you're not without feeling deep emotional pain. And third, your entire nervous system enters a state of uncertainty. The old map you used to navigate life no longer works, but the new one hasn't been drawn yet. This is precisely why awakening often feels like pure chaos. Jung called this stage the descent into the unconscious. This is the part of the journey no one talks about. Spiritual culture loves to glorify awakening with images of light, clarity, and peace. But Jung was brutally honest about the process. He said, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. Before you can integrate, you must first confront. You have to meet the parts of yourself you've spent a lifetime avoiding. Your fear, your envy, your anger, your grief, your shame. This isn't a step backward. This is the real beginning of integration. As your consciousness expands, your shadow rises to meet you. The shadow isn't evil. It's simply everything you were taught not to be. It's the parts of you that were rejected or suppressed. When the shadow emerges, your life destabilizes. You feel contradictory emotions. You doubt yourself constantly. You question everything you thought you knew. Many people try to medicate this phase away or distract themselves with endless busyness. Some even label it as depression. But Jung saw it for what it was, an initiation. One of the most painful aspects of this awakening process is the profound loneliness. You feel disconnected from people you once related to. Small talk becomes almost unbearable. Social roles feel artificial and suffocating. This happens because your newfound awareness creates distance. You start to see the hidden patterns in conversations, the unspoken motives, the social games people play. And once you see them, they cannot be unseen. Jung famously said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. But the price for that privilege is separating from who you once were." This stage feels like grief, because it is grief. You are mourning the loss of the old version of yourself, the comforting illusions that kept you safe, and the certainty you once had about life. But without this death, there can be no rebirth. In psychological terms, this is ego dissolution. The ego resists this process with all its might because it equates surrender with complete annihilation. But what's dying isn't you. What's dying is the person you were pretending to be. Many people panic when their motivation suddenly vanishes. They think they've become lazy, broken, or uninspired. But Jung explained this phenomenon differently. He said that motivation disappears when it no longer serves the agenda of the true self. Your psyche is consciously withdrawing energy from goals that are no longer aligned with your inner truth. This isn't a collapse, it's a reorientation. Your entire system is recalibrating for a new direction. Then comes a phase Jung called the void. Nothing excites you. Nothing feels meaningful. You feel suspended in a space between your old identity and a new one that hasn't formed yet. This is perhaps the most dangerous stage of the journey. Not because something is wrong with you, but because the ego craves certainty and will do anything to get it back. Many people turn back here. They rush to rebuild their old life, return to familiar roles, and reattach themselves to familiar suffering. And at that moment, the awakening process stops. As your consciousness grows, you'll notice that life itself starts to test you. Old structures collapse even faster. People challenge you in new ways. Situations arise that push you right to your boundaries. This isn't a punishment. It's pressure testing. Your psyche is asking a critical question. Are you ready to live from your truth, or will you retreat back into illusion? Awakening is not a passive experience. It demands immense courage. The ultimate goal of this entire process is what Jung called individuation. It's not about becoming perfect or spiritual. It's about becoming whole. This means integrating all parts of yourself, the light and the shadow, your strength and your vulnerability, the conscious and the unconscious. Wholeness is incredibly powerful, but it's also uncomfortable because it leaves no place to hide from yourself. After this awakening begins, something strange happens. You start to speak less. You feel the need to explain yourself less, to prove yourself less. It's not because you're afraid, but because you no longer need external validation to feel worthy. Jung observed that truly integrated individuals move quietly through the world. They don't seek attention. They radiate a sense of coherence. And that quiet coherence is magnetic. Once your awareness expands, going back is no longer a real option. You can try to return to old habits, old relationships, old ways of being, but they will no longer satisfy you. In fact, they will feel even more painful than before. This is why awakening feels irreversible. Your psyche has crossed a threshold, and thresholds are one-way doors. Eventually, a new kind of stability returns. It's not the rigid, fragile stability of your old life. It's a deeper, more flexible foundation. You no longer rely on an external identity for your sense of self. You no longer chase approval. You begin to act from a place of inner alignment. Life becomes simpler, but not necessarily easier. The difference is, you are no longer asleep. So if your life is falling apart right now, it may not be because you are failing. It may be because you are finally outgrowing a structure that can no longer hold the person you are becoming. Jung believed that these crises are not accidents. They are invitations from the soul. And true awakening always begins where your certainty ends. Remember, not everyone who falls apart is broken. Some are simply being reorganized from the inside. If this resonates with you, you're not alone. You're just early. Thank you so much for watching. If this message connected with you, consider subscribing for more insights into this journey. See you next time.